The Ministry of Health, Wellness, Human Services and Gender Relations is working towards yet another initiative, that of achieving baby-friendly hospital status at its main hospitals. The baby-friendly hospital status is a global initiative to promote, protect and support breastfeeding. A 3-day workshop involving hospital administrators, heads of departments, nurses and health educators organized by the ministry in collaboration with the Pan American Health Organization PAHO and the Caribbean Public Health Agency CARPHA was held this week to sensitize officials on the baby-friendly hospital initiative. The Senior Technical Officer for Food Security and Nutrition at CARPHA, Christine Bocage, says the workshop was geared at sensitizing participants on the International Code of Marketing of Breast Milk Substitutes and the steps to attaining the baby-friendly hospital status.
There is a code that protects babies who are going to be breastfed, which is the optimal way to feed babies, and the code also protects babies who formula feed. So it's really a code on the marketing of the product, not on the manufacture of the product. So we want to make sure that mothers who can breastfeed, there is not spillover from formula companies to lure them into using formula, because the breast milk has everything that the baby needs. It's the optimal way to feed babies. And for those who must formula feed or those who decide that they are not going to breastfeed, we want to ensure that whatever formula, that commercial formula that we suggest to them, is within the code that 118 countries signed into in 1981, and of course the declarations that followed to this date.
And the CARPHA official is also promoting breastfeeding as the optimum method of feeding babies for the first 6 months of their lives. This, she said, will have a positive impact on the overall health of the child into adulthood.
We have what you will call an epidemic of childhood obesity, and of course that stems from the way we feed our children in infancy. We are also seeing obesity in the adults as well, and these things, that's one of the major risk factors for what we call the non-communicable diseases. And for those who don't know, those are things like diabetes, hypertension, heart diseases and so. So in the past, where we saw that type 2 diabetes was more in the adult population, and we used to call it adult onset diabetes, it's now called type 2 diabetes. We are seeing those in 12-year-olds and 10-year-olds and 14-year-olds. And if we have that obesity in childhood now, at 10 years and even before that, we are seeing a population that will not live beyond 45 years. Okay, so we want to make sure that we nip it in the bud, and we feel that this baby-friendly hospital initiative, where we're looking at promoting, supporting and protecting breastfeeding, we can get mothers leaving the hospital exclusively breastfeeding, meaning giving breast milk alone, and also being able to continue doing that for the 6 months that UNICEF and WHO proposes for optimal exclusive breastfeeding of the individual. And at that 6-month period, they introduce other foods that we call complementary foods.
Chief Nutritionist in the Ministry of Health, Lisa Hunt-Mitchell, said the workshop was also conducted against the backdrop of a multiple indicator cluster survey, which reflected a decline in national breastfeeding rates.
And knowing the importance of breastfeeding as the optimal nutrition for children, we would like to ensure that breastfeeding rates increase, especially exclusive breastfeeding, which is breastfeeding children up to 0 to 6 months without giving the children anything, even water. We also, in the future, would like to have a breastfeeding policy, or what we call an infant and young child feeding policy, because of the importance of breastfeeding, where it can actually prevent children from becoming obese, whether as children, or it also protects obesity in adulthood. And because of that importance, we really want to appease to people, the mothers, to breastfeed, and we are going to be taking some radical changes next year in promoting breastfeeding.
The chief nutritionist also says come next year, the public should look forward to an aggressive breastfeeding promotional campaign, particularly to combat some myths about breastfeeding.
A child's stomach is so small that a newborn stomach is only 4 teaspoons. So they're thinking that the child is not the breast milk is not sufficient. These are the myths that we have. We also have where parents believe that they have to purge after they have had a baby, and that can prevent them from from giving breast milk at that time. And of course, once you break the pattern of breastfeeding, exclusive breastfeeding is no longer. We also have issues where mothers will not take the HIV test. And so while they're having the HIV test done, that time, just after they give birth, the child is not being breastfed, and so they may be formula fed. And these are some of the problems. We also have the grandmothers might be encouraging the children to give them toloma, which is arrowroot. And those myths. We also have the young people who believe that their breasts will sag. And like the instructor was saying, the facilitator, sorry, that sometimes your breast sag even before you have a child. So having a child is not going to be the reason why your breast sag. And we don't want these reasons to be we don't want these reasons to be excuses for not breastfeeding children because of the importance of breastfeeding.